Welcome to Focus Diaspora. This is your host, Patrick Deo, bringing you Focus Diaspora from this beautiful location, Swahili Village. Swahili Village is a Kenyan restaurant in the Washington, D.C. area that serves all the Kenyan delicacies, ugali, nyama choma, any dish of Kenya that you would want to have. So when you're in the D.C. area, please stop at Swahili Village. Today, we want to talk about, as usual, the issues that affect Kenya. And the first thing that we want to talk about today is the election that is coming. This election has been talked about as the most critical election of our times, and that it will determine the direction that Kenya goes, whether it becomes very democratic under the rule of law, or is there a chance that this election can even bring more chaos than the 2007 chaos, and because of things that are happening on the ground. And so today, we're going to discuss that issue of the election. But we're going to discuss it from a point of view of the law versus the moral value, the greater good of the community. As we know, two prominent individuals, Mr. William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta, are both standing for the presidency of Kenya. And these two are, as we know, are being prosecuted by the ICC under the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. The question is, should they stand? From a law perspective, yes, they're innocent until proven guilty, and they have every right to stand. But from a moral standpoint, from a country healing standpoint, should they stand down so that they wait until a verdict is given? And that is the larger question. The law versus the soul of the country, the healing of the country. And today with me, I have two wonderful Kenyans to discuss this issue. You're probably now familiar with Mcharo Mkawasi Hall. You were here in the last, when we discussed it here last time. So yes, thank you and welcome back.
Thank you.
And a new guest, Omulo Okowa. Welcome to Focus Diaspora. These are issues that we're going to discuss today. What is, as I said, this election is going to be taken as, is seen as the most pivotal point in the Kenyans going forward. Kenya is a democratic state, but we know that there's been a blemish in that view of Kenya as a stable country from the 2007 election with the violence. As a result, we know that the two most prominent individuals in the presidential election, Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto, are being prosecuted at the ICC. And I think this process starts next year, sometimes after the election. The election has been said to be in March. Now, the question that I want us to discuss is, yes, we can say from a law standpoint that they're innocent. They've not been proven guilty at all. And therefore, as citizens of the country, they are entitled to stand. But the moral question is, they've been accused of the most heinous crimes. Is this a good thing for the country?
Thank you very much for having me on the show again. The one thing I can say is let us ask ourselves the question, why is there um, leadership and integrity chapter in the Constitution? How did it come about? So we really cannot say that these things are not covered by law. And the leadership and integrity chapter 6 in the Constitution encapsulates the spirit and the moral value of the people of Kenya. And that is the bridge that links it to law. And when we question the integrity of a leader, then there has to be a place where the Kenyans, where the citizen can actually have redress for this. And I think it is very important to look at that chapter 6 and see and say, if we have leaders who are questionable, if we are not really sure if we want to have those leaders, even if the law allows them to be there, what cause can we take so that we can ensure we're going to have the best leaders? And that is why the leadership and integrity chapter is very important. And I know we can have a very long discussion as to how it was watered down in Parliament and what that means to having the best kind of leadership that we need. So I think it is very important to consider the moral aspect of leaders that we want, because it goes a long way into healing Kenya.
What do you think about this, Mr. Kaur?
First of all, thank you for having me here in this program today. To begin with, let me say this. If you want to be a leader of any nation or a leader of any position, first of all, you must look for what I call peer approval. There's no peer approval you're going to get when you have checkered or questionable background, issues that are not resolved. And the moment it's not resolved, then it's questionable. And here we are talking about you're going to be the president of Kenya. If you are the president of Kenya and you have a questionable background, you are talking about your peers of the international community. You're going to be a key international representative at these forums, and this hanging over your head. I think we have to join the international community and what I call the civilized world, whereby it's almost unwritten law all over the world that any leader, once your integrity is questioned, you step aside, you let that be cleared, and then you move from there.
And what does it say about the country itself? Assuming, let's assume that maybe one of these people, either Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto, succeeds and is elected. And then the next month they have to face the ICC. What does that say about the country?
Did you want to go? Okay, go ahead.
Well, the one thing I think it says of us that we are still stuck somewhere in the worship of personalities. And just to respond to what you talked about, peer approval, on a global perspective, on an international perspective, that makes sense, because we do have countries like the US and other developed democracies that are not going to allow that kind of leadership. We know what happens here. You do one wrong thing, you send a tweet or something online about yourself, maybe a compromising picture of yourself as a leader, the next day you have to resign.
Right.
So it is that intense. But when we are talking about peer approval in Kenya, that concept does not exist. We have thousands, millions of voters who are practically worshipping these leaders.
Yep.
So we have to figure out exactly where we want to stand.
Okay, just to add on, first of all, when we talk about peer approval, I think we also talk about how did it come about. First of all, when leadership was, I always tell people this, and some don't take it very kindly, that the truth is when independence was handed over, or when we gained it, or when we attained it, something went wrong. That the leadership that took over showed us the wrong path of how to be citizenship. The pride of being a Kenyan was never instilled in us, or the pride that you're a Kenyan was never instilled. Instead, the pride of who your leader is was instilled more, and then it was more of the tribal leaders. But going back to your question in the very sense, when you ask the question, what becomes if one of them gets elected to the president? Then I would say we become another al-Bashir of Sudan, who is constantly running away from
and that is, we are constantly, Kenya is a signatory to the ICC, which means in that kind of scenario, then the Attorney General would be obligated, or the Chief Justice would be obligated to arrest this president. I don't see a scenario where that would happen. Now, if we look at, if we take the severity of the allegation and just put it against the most recent issue of ethics, Ms. Baraza, the Deputy Chief Justice, she has been asked to step down, and she has actually stepped down until the allegations against her for assaulting the girl, for frisking her. Now, that is a much lower threshold than being accused of masterminding the killings. We know that there are still people there's still IDPs in Kenya right now who have not been settled, who were rooted from their homes that they've known for years. There was over 1,500 people that died. So this is a very serious allegation. How does that match up?
I would say this: it takes a long time to create paradigm shifts. The one thing I always say I have hope for Kenya is because of the judiciary. Within a very short period of time, judiciary in Kenya has shown us the right way, how to get things done. It is so exemplary that there is no way we cannot have hope. Yet on the political leadership aspect, this is something that we have to get together as civic societies, especially. Civic societies and religious societies, they have to get together to drive the paradigm shift. So that even when we know that the law allows certain individuals to stand for elections, the wave of civil society and religious organizations is going to be so great that the power of the vote is going to say no to whoever it is that is questionable.
And with that, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're still going to talk about those issues. We'll expand on those issues: the civil society, the law, and the moral standing of our community. This is your host, Patrick Dare, and we are here in this beautiful Kenyan joint, the Swahili village. We'll be right back.
IEBC is now the only body which has the power to start to conduct voter registration for Kenyans living abroad.
I think most of us would be willing to pay a fee.
No. Also, what's going on with registration in terms of like identification cards? Because I personally don't have one. I applied for one last year. I don't know how many people in this room have an ID card.
And welcome back to Focus Diaspora. This is your host, Patrick Dare, and today I'm very glad to have two guests with me, Mkawasi Mcharo Hall and Mr. Omulo Kowa. When we left, we were talking about the civil society. And we must say that the civil society has been very busy in Kenya lately.
Yeah.
And, but somehow, I don't think they're pushing this issue very, very hard. And as you're saying, the chapter 6 of the Constitution, talks about ethics. There's also chapter 2, the Republic, with the Article 10, which it speaks to the national value and the principles of governance. That binds the whole state. It will bind the counties, local government, and just how things are looked as from a good governance perspective, the integrity of the government, the integrity of the person or people that are leading in the government. These are all issues that must be taken into account. I mean, it is baffling, at least to me, that right now we don't hear so much of the civil society coming up very strongly against this.
I must say that I've not really been in the civil society movement, but I know a little bit about it. That one, we were very impressed. They helped in the push for a lot of changes, a lot of things that was happening. There's no step in Kenya since the advent of multi-party in 1992 that the civil society did not play a role. And I don't think we could have achieved anything without the civil society playing its role. The problem comes in when a lot of these civil society leaders are the very ones who now want to rush back to go take those political offices. And the only disappointment I've seen is some of the strongest crusaders of these things, when they end up in these political offices, because of the culture, they all end up looking almost like the rest of every Kenyan politician. So that brings me to thinking that the best thing we have to do is we have to look for a way to change the Kenyan culture. We are a society that must change culture. Sometimes I make people laugh that we are probably one of the very few society when somebody is seeking for leadership and is wealthy. We praise his wealth without even questioning where that wealth came from. And you go back broke, you want to hold a position, they say, oh, this one held a big position and is coming back with nothing. Yeah. We cannot elect this one. So that tells the culture, where the society, what we are thinking. So it's a whole societal shift. As my guest here said, that we really have to refocus on who are we as a society. We have to identify who we are.
And that is addressed in the chapter 13, the public service of the Constitution, which looks at the values and the principles of being a public servant. What is it to be a public servant? You have to have very high standards of professionalities, of ethics, of priority, of service that the people that you're serving. That is the priority.
Well, the one thing I can say is with the civil society, I think as we speak, there's a lawsuit challenging the candidacy of individuals in Kenya who are both standing for presidency. Yes. Okay. And I think a number of MPs. I'm not sure of the details of it, but what I know is that the civil society in Kenya has been pushing for the recognition of Chapter 6. Now, when Parliament went back and started amending Chapter 6 and passed it as a really watered down bill on leadership and integrity, there was hue and cry. Now, this comes up. Everybody says, "Oh, this is wrong. This cannot happen. We cannot have leaders who are not vetted by state councils, by state organizations. We have to have leaders who raise the bar." But the question is, when it comes to putting the resources on the ground that require the civil societies to take this on to a logical conclusion, do we have the resources? Do we have the leadership? Do we have the Martin Luther Kings, the Mandelas, the Gandhis? Do we have them?
And how do we even start to have the political will to implement these things if our leaders, our top leaders, and those who are vying for leadership are accused of such heinous crimes? I mean, we have right now in Parliament, and this is the question of even vetting. How can you have members of Parliament vetting people for positions in government that are supposed, and part of the vetting is what's your professionality, what is your ethics and all that. And yet in the same chamber we have members of Parliament who, an example, is a criminal, non-criminal, escaped from prison. How do you do that?
What I would say is that clearly, I'll go back to us missing who we are.
Yeah.
To be more honest, probably 50% of those people in Parliament would not be there if we really have integrity. That has to be integrity that we really have to look at. We have criminals, we have people who are thrown out of the law society, and some of them holding cabinet positions, and these are the vetters. And when we talk about civil servants, we do not have people who are doing public service. Public service should be looked as a call. Our civil servants or our public servants look at public service as a way of enrichment. Everybody looks at it as a way of enrichment. If we are truly looking for public service, it should be a call. It should be something almost people are volunteering, something that you don't expect anything in return. every leader in that society is looking for returns for their public holding of their public offices. That is where we are missing it. Public service has to be a call. It has to be something you're doing for the love of the nation. And that is lacking in our society. It has never been cultivated. That I'm doing something. I look at America sometimes. I'm very proud of America for one thing. You look at somebody living a very great job. We had an NFL, which is American national football player, left the NFL to go and fight in Iraq, in Afghanistan. Yeah. He died there, Tillman. This is because for the love of the flag of the country, and he'll tell you, I'm doing it for the love of the flag. We want to wrap around the flag. When are we going to have this flag that we're so proud of, that we're willing to die for, like that great football player who was earning millions and millions of dollars, but left his job to go and fight to defend the flag? We have not reached there because this has not been built into us. And we missed it in our educational system. That's where the missing started. This has not been built in our children growing up. And I can go on, but I'm not sure to say something.
No, I just wanted to say that the name itself says it. It's public service. It's all in that name. You're not going there so that you can warm up a chair and receive a massive salary for nothing.
But for me also, what becomes even disconcerting is that this kind of practice from the topmost becomes almost goes down to the society and makes the society itself rot from the core. Because, I mean, when a minister of justice goes up and says, oh, these people can stand, and not flinch about saying that, and not even stop to think about how did these two people, again, I'm going to insist that they're innocent. But from the issue of the society, how can we rightly say that these people, having been accused of this kind of crime, can garner the spirit of the nation and make us heal?
Well, Patrick, I think we have to speak the truth here. Is that we have not come to a point in Kenya where we have leaders who see the people as the people they're serving. When you have members of parliament or ministers or anyone in power who does not see the IDPs, who does not see the victims, who does not see the millions who are poor in the slums, who does not see the local people in villages who need toothpaste, toothbrush, whatever it is, the most minimal, for them these are not the people. The person you're considering, the person you're protecting, the person who is at the core of your service is your friend, the member of parliament, the presidential candidate, whoever it is. Then we have the wrong leaders. Then we have people who have absolutely no idea why they're in leadership. So that is why we need this servant leadership. We need these people who can actually look at the people and see the people as the reason why they're serving.
Just to add something very interesting, as much as we know these leaders and what they've done, interestingly, most of them we still end up voting for them. And that tells you something is wrong. And even these two candidates who are being going to be tried at the ICC, let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. They have a following. They do. They have a following.
A very big following.
And the question is, what is different about us that we can't see what other civilized societies can see, that we think it's all right, these people can be leaders? And I always say that one thing that is wrong with us, if you want to oppress people, first of all, or you want people, you thrive on their ignorance. And the ignorance in Kenya has been created through lack of the building of the middle class. It's a society with no middle class. You have the top rich and then the bottom poor. So the middle class who pushes things are not there. The only middle class we have now is a civil society, which is a very small group. So the moment you don't have a middle class, the society cannot thrive educationally. The society cannot thrive in any way, even including...
They become very dependent.
They become dependent, and this is where the problem is, that we are in a society that lacks the middle. Even economically, we are not going to grow. We can even imagine that 2030, until we get the middle class, we are not moving anywhere. That is the truth.
The poverty issue really drives it.
And this segues into our next issue that we're going to be discussing even more. Governance and the issue of governance, because everything comes back to what is the principles that govern the country. And I was reading, and I'll quote here, a report about governance that was written by some group in Norway. That there's a strong evidence of link between the quality of a country's governing system and its development performance. Problems of poverty and governance are inextricably linked, which means that to the extent that people are poor, the extent how the country does, it really depends on how the governance the country is perceived or practiced. And we're going to come back to this topic and talk about it on the other side. This is your host, Patrick Dare, and here we are on Focus Diaspora, a program that comes to you from Washington. And with that, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're still going to talk about governance and the issue of how the country is perceived from its government.